In 1977, the Bond franchise went all out to create The Spy Who Loved Me. It's hard to believe now, but at the time the film series was considered to be ailing after the recent disappointments of The Man with the Golden Gun. But rather than admit defeat and see this as a waning of interest in the character, they decided to throw everything at The Spy Who Loved Me, making it one of the most expensive Bond films to be made at the time. And the result was a roaring success, and the rest is now history. It secured Roger Moore as James Bond, and he went on to play the role for 4 further films. And one of the breakout successes of the film was one of the film's antagonists in this character, Jaws. Richard Kiel made such a huge impression in this role, which made it inevitable that he'd be invited back for the next film in the franchise. And it's worth pointing out that with the exception of Blofeld, Jaws is one of the only antagonists to ever come back in a second film to menace Bond. Of course, in 1977, another film was released that would have a huge impact on pop culture for, well, years and years and years to come. So much so that in 1979, James Bond went to space, and would once again face Jaws. Moonraker was a massive success for the Bond franchise, and it spawned a whole range of Mego James Bond figures. And although by today's standards these 12-inch figures are a little simplistic and the likenesses are a little bit off, I actually think it's quite a nice line. And not only did they make figures of James Bond and Jaws, they also made figures like Holly and Drax, which is fantastic. And I think I'm right in saying that they're the only figures of those characters to be made to date. I'm certainly not aware of any other ones being on the market. Although I will admit that the Jaws is a little bit strange in terms of the head sculpt. I'm not quite sure what's going on with his jaws there, but maybe it had some kind of clamping action or something like that. But yeah, it does look a little bit odd. Anyway, fast forward a few years, and Sideshow Collectibles did a range of James Bond figures, celebrating the 40th anniversary, and at this time the line was doing very well, and they decided to produce a couple of Moonraker figures, both of Bond and Jaws. So first up, looking at the James Bond, the costume they decided to go with this figure was the lemon spacesuit that he wears in the film. And I think this is kind of a cool choice to go with, to be honest. I think the temptation would have been to do him in his spacesuit, which is obviously what Mego did all those years ago and what's on the film posters. But this is actually a little bit different. This is sort of unique, really, a unique take in action figure form. And I have to say, despite it not being the most exciting costume in the world, I actually think it's a nice touch. I always quite like this costume. It does make a welcome change from Bond being a tuxedo or in one of his safari suits, as Roger Moore was known for wearing. And as usual, the packaging for this figure, as with all the Sideshow collectible figures, is really, really nicely presented. The fold-out flap front of the case is really lovely, seeing the figure inside and having that right up of the film. And yeah, I have to say, out of the packaging, he looks brilliant, I think. I actually really like this outfit, and I think it looks fantastic. It is, of course, the standard body type that Sideshow Collectibles used for figures at the time, so it looks a little bit dated and a little bit unsophisticated, I suppose, by modern Hot Toys standards that we get these days. But at the time, these were revolutionary and actually really kick-started the whole 1/6 collectibles, really. I think it's fair to say that the outfit here actually isn't as brighter yellow as is in the film or in the promotional pictures, but I think it's actually a very pleasant sort of creamy lemon kind of colour, which is actually quite nice, and I think I prefer it than a really garish yellow. Now the head sculpt makes or breaks these figures, and this one is no exception. I think the likeness is brilliant. Again, especially for the time, I think this captures the Roger Moore likeness really well. And despite being, a quite simple design in terms of costume, it's really quite appealing and quite striking, really. And I think it's well tailored, and it just looks really, really nice. And one of the things that you get with these figures is the little nuance, the little attention to detail. The hand-sewn logo badge looks really nice here. I think I love the little silver ring top pull at the top there. It looks really good too. And the application of the silver foil around the collars and on the straps all look fantastic. And other little details like the little pouches on his belt, or the pockets of his trousers with the little buttons sewn in. There's not a lot to make of this costume, but the little details that are there are really pleasing and quite nicely done. And of course, he's got the standard film base there, which is nice for display when you're displaying with the other figures in the collection. The rubber boots do stand out a little bit. You can see that they're quite clearly, a strikingly different shade of yellow. So that is slightly distracting, but it's a minor niggle. In terms of his accessories, this figure is actually quite light for one of these figures in the range. He does come with his wrist dart, which is it's quite nice. It's a single rubber piece that ties together. It looks pretty good. There's not a lot of detailing on it, but then there isn't much to do with it, to be honest. And his hands are made of that very sort of flexible plastic, which allow you to basically really move the fingers so that they can basically grip nicely any accessories or weapons that you might be given. And I've always really quite liked the detail on the veins in the hands of these. But as you can see, he does come obviously with his Moonraker blaster laser gun, which is great, and that fits so snugly and smoothly into his hand there, and it looks great. Again, the film prop itself is quite generic and bland in terms of detailing, but yeah, I feel like Sideshow have caught it perfectly, and it looks great, and like I said, he holds it brilliantly. So yeah, what little detail there is there, like on the end nozzle, looks fab. I really like this figure. I think it's got a very simplistic design, and obviously it's very light on accessories as well. But I think he looks great, and I do feel like it captures the movie really, and the likeness is fantastic. Now, looking at the Jaws figure, the first thing you'll probably notice when you see these figures in the boxes side by side is that the Jaws figure is significantly taller than the Roger Moore. So they are more or less in scale with each other, which is absolutely brilliant. And you can see here, obviously, the presentation's the same sort of standardised approach, really, but it's really nicely done. The images they used to put on the back of the packaging, he looks great. And yeah, right off the bat, as soon as you take out the packaging, it's the head sculpt every time, and he looks fantastic. I love the detailing on the teeth particularly. Obviously, it's crucial for this character, but the way they've done the eyes, and they've just nailed his likeness perfectly. Again, this is a character that actually, in terms of costume, is quite bland, but it is incredibly faithful to the film, and has taken his appearance from the opening scene, where obviously he jumps out the plane, and that's why they give him the parachute that you can wrap around, and that's on him here. And this character is just impressively overbearing as a figure, just because the scale is so massive. He stands way above the Roger Moore figure, and I mean, entirely appropriately, of course, and just again, just captures the character really, really wonderfully. So in terms of detailing, obviously there's not an awful lot to go on with this outfit really. Things like the shoes are really nice, little detailings there. Obviously it comes with his little, I guess, pressure monitor. And yeah, of course the big thing really is his parachute, which is nicely done. It's actually padded, so it feels like there's a parachute in there, and there's little detail in there, and the buckles and the connections that look good. One thing I should point out is that the hands aren't really articulated at the wrists, so they do turn round, but they are sort of one piece, and the fingers are a firm moulded plastic, so there's no flexibility. There's no way he'd be able to, say, grip any guns or any other things that you might want to get hold of, unless they're able to fit in that very wide grip that he's got. But considering most of the positions you're probably going to want to put him in is him sort of looming or lurching over other characters, it's not a problem. And he does also come with his goggles as well, which look okay. The elastic seems to have gone on mine, so they're quite loose. They're nice to have, but they're not really a look that I would want to model very often, to be honest. I think he's way more impressive without the goggle. And here he is standing next to Roger, and doesn't that look fantastic? I love this. I love the scale, and I think they just look so good together. It's brilliant. There's just something immensely fun about these two figures. Having them together, they display really well together, and there's all sorts of great display options you can have for them fighting. And yeah, I just think they look great, to be honest. And Sideshow definitely just knocked it out of the park with these two. These are figures now that are actually quite difficult to pick up in the secondary market, at least in the UK. Obviously, they have increased in value over the years, and I know particularly the Jaws is quite a tricky one to get hold of. I spent a long time trying to get hold of him, and I was so pleased when I finally did. But yeah, he's absolutely worth it. Both of them are. Yeah, I think if you're a fan of Moonraker, or you just love Roger's era, or even if you just like Jaws, yeah, I think you'll be very, very pleased with these figures. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as I'll be posting more videos soon.